Excuse me. If everybody can join in welcoming D.A. King, President of the Dustin Inman Society.
Good morning, everybody. My name is D.A. King, and I am exceedingly proud to be here. I am a conservative, and it is ever so joyous to be in a room full of conservatives. Thank you very much for inviting me. For those of you who do not know me, and we all need a little grin now and then, the reason I use my initials when I'm introduced and when I write is because my mom named me Donald Arthur King, which makes me Don King. See? I am the other Don King. I am here today and have been invited to speak about something I believe that is connected to every other issue in our state and in our country, and that is immigration. And also I have been asked to share some realities that I have learned from nearly 15 years of being furniture in the state capitol. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about immigration. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what goes on in our state capitol. And the main reason I am here is to ask for your help. And the way that you can help is to pay attention and to speak up. This group is going to do wonderful things. I know you already have. I hope I'm invited back next year, and I hope this room is twice as full as it is this year. Thank you very much for your work. A little bit about immigration, and it is always necessary to have a few disclaimers. We are often told that we live in a nation of immigrants, or that we are a nation of immigrants. If people who said that really believed it, then we would be allowed to talk freely about immigration, and we aren't. We are not a nation of immigrants in my mind. In my mind, we are a nation of laws. The United States of America does take in more real, legal immigrants than any nation on this planet. And I am someone who believes that people like my adopted sister, who is an immigrant from Korea, that all legal immigrants should be honored by us actually enforcing our immigration laws, securing our borders, and honoring the rich tradition of immigration by actually protecting the people who come here the right and legal way. That having been said, I am also educated to the point where I think that the current 1 million legal immigrants a year that we are now taking in is too many. I do not see the assimilation that I saw even when I was a kid, and I'm 65 years old. In the 60s, we took in about 300,000 legal immigrants every year. By the 80s, that had gone up to between 500 and 600,000 people. Now we're taking in 1 million. Immigration, folks, should benefit the United States of America and Americans. I'm also pretty much hung up, and I don't really ever think about it as being anything wrong with it, but I believe that English should be the common and official language of these United States, and I don't care who knows it. Okay, it sounds like we're on the same page. Adding to that, I also believe that English should be the constitutional official language of government here in Georgia, and we're going to get to that later. President Trump, one thing I forgot to say, we are past 6 months of the date that neither Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton is in the White House, and about that I'm exceedingly happy. President Trump has done wonders on controlling the organized crime that is illegal immigration simply by beginning the process of speaking out against it and stopping the process of rewarding that crime. We should be ever so grateful. Whatever you think about everything that the president has done, please note that on the issue that got Donald Trump into the White House, he is doing extremely well, better in the last 6 months and more results than the last 2 presidents combined. And I am very, very adamant that he should be appreciated for that. On this, please know that Senator David Perdue of Georgia has joined Tom Cotton of Arkansas and introduced a legislation in the United States Senate that would actually begin to reform our immigration system by reducing the total numbers every year and changing the type of people that we invite in to be the future generations of Americans. The concept is that we should have educated, productive people who want to join the American family legally, and instead of 1 million, Senator Perdue's bill calls for 500,000. Now, I agree with that, but he needs help. We need to speak out in support of the RAISE Act and Senator Perdue in your local newspapers, on the radio, with your neighbors, whatever. But he needs help because the far left and the establishment wing of the Republican Party are against the RAISE Act because, folks, for the Republican establishment, high immigration is all about cheap labor. I am a working class kid from the suburbs of Detroit. I am extremely upset when I hear someone say there are jobs that Americans will not do, because that is a dirty, insulting lie. There's only wages for which Americans will not do some jobs. Help with the RAISE Act will be great. On immigration here in Georgia, please know that Georgia has more illegal aliens, the legal and proper accurate name for people who are not citizens and are here illegally. Georgia has more illegal aliens than does the state of Arizona. The estimate in 2010 during that year's gubernatorial election was that Georgia was spending about $2.4 billion a year on the crime of illegal immigration. If you think somehow that the crime of illegal immigration is not related to every other issue, or immigration in general, if you think it is separate from education or health care or your taxes or your national well-being or your community or your common language, if you have that idea in your head, I am politely telling you, you are wrong. Immigration should never be regarded as a separate issue. I also want to move into what goes on under the Gold Dome. I am a cynic. I wasn't when I started going to the Gold Dome 14 years ago, but I am now. Most people do not know how their government works. Most people will look in the paper or look on the news and they will try to see, how their state legislator voted on final passage of a bill on the floor. That is not the heart and meat of politics, folks. Politics happens in committees and in closed doors before bills go into committees. Once a bill gets to the floor, it is very seldom that there's going to be much curiosity or wonderment about how the bill is going to come out. I want to point out very respectfully, if you have the opportunity to go to the state capitol, please go to a committee meeting and make sure you know what's going on in the bill and how you want your state rep or your state senator to vote in the committee meeting as well as on the floor. On immigration and state politics, you need to know this, because one of the truisms of all of this is that with the exception of very few media outlets, honest journalism is dead. And what you don't know about what's going on, how many people here with a raise of hands understand that the state of Georgia is now issuing driver's licenses to about 30,000 illegal aliens? more than I thought. For those of you who did not raise your hand, please believe me. Republican-controlled Georgia is giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens, in part because of what Barack Obama did, but they've done nothing to stop it or even change it. And I want right now to tip my hat to my friend and the most conservative person under that gold dome, that being Josh McKoon, state senator, who passed a bill, got a bill passed in the Senate with every Republican vote except one, that would have at least altered the document that's being given to illegal aliens as a driver's license. We're giving the same driver's license to illegal aliens that we're giving to the family of foreign diplomats and to Mercedes-Benz and Kia executives. I beg of you to help me change that this coming session. There is a bill that will change that. Speaking of state politics, I want to make sure people understand that there is a system in place, the default system for voting on floor amendments in the Republican-controlled state Senate is an unrecorded vote. For those of you who don't go to the Capitol, I can't fully describe to you the larceny that is possible and does happen with unrecorded votes. As quickly as I can, it goes like this. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the Georgia Chamber of Commerce orders up a piece of legislation that will help all of its members make more money. And they give it to a legislative sponsor in the Senate, and the sponsor says, you know, we're not really going to get away with that in committee. That's going a little bit too far. So if the goal is X, they write legislation that goes almost to X, and they run it through the public committee process, and then it goes to the Senate floor, and then they can change it to X by adding or subtracting language in this legislation on the floor. You can be sitting in the room and not know what happened. Legislation is changed on a regular basis in the state Senate of Georgia with unrecorded votes, and the unrecorded vote is a raise your hand vote. Do you know how they decide whether or not to have an unrecorded raise your hand vote? They decide that with an unrecorded raise your hand vote. This has got to stop one more time. It is my friend Josh McKoon who tried to stop it last year. He got one co-sponsor, and he never made it out of the Standing Rules Committee. I have watched, along with Judy Kraft and Kay Godwin, I have watched the state Senate try to take out an E-Verify benefit from an immigration bill. I have watched them kill an amendment that would have stopped giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens, and I have watched them change the transportation tax bill so they could get it to a vote. It's as important stuff that you may regard as a detail, and I know it's hard to keep up with. What I hope for is that we can have some common way to communicate, Facebook, a blog, whatever. I have a website called the Dustin Inman Society, named after a man who was forever 16, who was killed by an illegal alien, and I try really hard to educate people. Please, please pay attention. Last thing, and we're going long, so I'm going to go short. Right now, Georgia has in place a statute, a law, that says English is the official language of Georgia. That law is meaningless, except for the fact that it is used by legislators to stop us from putting in place meaningful legislation or putting a constitutional amendment in place that makes English the official language of government here in Georgia. This is the year for that. What we want to do is get a resolution passed by the state Senate and by the House that will do nothing except allow all of us voters, Democrat, Republican, Black, White, Latino, Asian, all Georgia voters, when they go to the ballot box on November of 2018 to vote, we want to be able to decide on a question that says, shall the state constitution be amended to make English the official language of government, yes or no? I'm hopeful that you will help me get that resolution out and passed Just so you'll know, we did a poll 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and 76% of the Georgians polled wanted English as the official language. And I think that's great. But if you ran a poll and asked a question, how many people would like simply the ability, the right to vote on a ballot question to decide that matter? You're going to get right up into the 90s. How many people would like to vote on whether or not to amend the state constitution, make English the official language of government in November of next year? Raise your hand. Okay. I beg of you to help us get that done. I did not come up here to promote my friend, but neither did I come up here to ignore the accomplishments and the courage of my friend. I want to make sure you know that it was Josh McCoon who carried the resolution 2 years ago that passed the state Senate with a 2/3 majority that would have allowed us to vote last November on a ballot question about making English the official language of government. I also want you to know desperately that once the resolution passed the Senate, it was sent over to the House and it went to a judiciary committee that is run by a man named Wendell Willard. What happened was that the resolution was assigned to a subcommittee, which met in a hurry in a very small room, 132 in the Capitol. Don't quote me on it, 132. It was a subcommittee. We have a Republican majority House and a Republican majority Judiciary Committee, but when Josh and I went to the subcommittee, there was only 2 Republicans there, and there was 5 Democrats there. Here is how the House of Representatives stopped you and me from voting on whether or not to amend the state constitution to make English the official language of government. The subcommittee chairman told the Republican members to go do something else. Knowing he had a majority of Democrats, he then, as a Republican chairman, called for a vote on getting the resolution out of the subcommittee, and the Democrats naturally voted no. And I say that with great sorrow because I am a working class kid from Detroit. But the Democrats were allowed to do the dirty work in a Republican-controlled subcommittee. Please do not miss the importance of what I'm telling you, and please do not assume that everything that goes on under the Gold Dome is good because it's controlled by Republicans. I'm sorry to say it, but that's just not the case. There is a swamp under the Gold Dome. It needs to be drained, and we can drain it if you pay attention. I am very grateful for this time. There's a couple of things I could say, but I'm going to quit. I want really and truly to pass along the message. We need a place to share information similar to what I just gave you. What I just gave you is about 0.1% of what I learned in a year under that Capitol. I know a lot about immigration. I will happily pay anybody who can invent a brain pump that will take all the information out of my big ugly head so I don't know any of this. But I do, and I want to help. I love this country more than anything in the world except for my wife and my family, and I want to save it. We are not going to have a sovereign nation that is cohesive with assimilation if we continue to bring in 1 million third world people a year. We don't have a common language, and even then, if we do not obey and enforce our immigration laws. We should bring in people from all over the world who are productive and want to come to the U.S., join the U.S. society, learn the language, assimilate, and become Americans like the people in my neighborhood did, and they wanted to learn English. I'm going to leave with a quote. I have other quotes that I like very much, but I'm going to quote something that I found this morning before I left the house, and it's from a young man whom I have great respect for. But this quote is from Alex Johnson, and I think it fits the day, and I think it fits the year. And I certainly think it fits standing up in front of a room and talking about immigration, which is the third rail of politics in this country, which is odd. If we're a nation of immigrants, we aren't, but if we're a nation of immigrants, why is it the third rail of politics? So in closing, I want to quote Alex by saying this and repeating his quote, "Cowardice has no place in politics." Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for letting me speak.